Viktor Sayenko, Igor Suprunyuk, and Alexander Hanzha had been close companions since the third grade and were raised together in Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine. They came from well-off, stable households and had no known record of serious misbehavior that anyone in their lives was aware of. Still, in the years leading up to the summer of 2007, the three had been involved in conduct that, looking back, made their eventual path completely foreseeable. They possessed a confirmed history of abusing animals, recording the acts and preserving those videos. Investigators later recovered at least one such video, said to be roughly 40 minutes long. In addition, they had been committing street robberies since at least 2005, and the level of violence in those holdups had grown more severe every year. By the start of 2007, they were preying on elderly individuals, and by spring they were active across several towns. While these events were unfolding, no one connected the dots. It is significant that the three did not have equal roles throughout. Hanzha was the most involved during the robbery phase, whereas Sayenko and Suprunyuk were already gravitating towards something much worse. Sometime in the first half of 2007, the pair made a conscious choice to begin committing murder. Their plan was to pick victims at random, record the assaults with mobile phones, and use the resulting videos to gain notoriety, potentially selling or sharing the material for recognition or profit. This choice did not arise from hardship or any external pressure. It arose from years of mutual, intensifying violence and a group dynamic where each person, because of the other's presence, felt willing to go further than he would have on his own. On the night of June 24, 2007, the killings commenced. During the next 3 weeks, Sayenko and Suprunyuk moved through Dnipropetrovsk and several nearby towns, selecting targets based purely on who was isolated and accessible at any particular time. They wielded hammers covered in plastic bags, steel pipes, and screwdrivers. The assaults were intentionally drawn out, making it obvious from the very beginning that fast death was never the goal. In nearly every attack, one of them held a mobile phone and recorded what was happening. Some victims were robbed afterwards, but in many instances personal items were left entirely untouched, confirming that theft had long stopped being the motive. As the death count rose in early July, Dnepropetrovsk fell into widespread panic. Bodies kept appearing in public places and wooded areas with no obvious links between them, and the frequency of discoveries made it impossible to minimize the situation. The attacks continued regardless, at the same rate and using the same approach, for 2 more full weeks. The victims included a 15-year-old boy and, at the other extreme, an 85-year-old woman named Regina Prokopenko. The selection was completely random, and the wide age range alone showed how indiscriminate the targeting had become. One specific attack from this period deserves close attention because of how it later influenced the investigation. On July 7th in the town of Podgorodno, Sayenko and Suprunyuk encountered 2 14-year-old boys, Andriy Sidyuk and Vadim Lyakov, who were fishing on a riverbank. Sidyuk was murdered at the scene. Lyakov managed to hide before they could reach him and remained hidden until he could safely leave. He survived, and that event would become one of the most crucial elements in the entire case. The attack that ultimately drew international attention to this case occurred on July 12, 2007. Sergei Yatsenko was a 48-year-old man who had recently finished cancer treatment and was physically weakened as a result. He was riding his motorcycle when Sayenko and Suprunyuk came upon him near a wooded area, knocked him off the road, and assaulted him. The entire attack was recorded on a mobile phone as continuous, unedited footage lasting several minutes. Yatsenko was hit in the face repeatedly with a hammer, stabbed in the eye and abdomen with a screwdriver, and subjected to extended violence while drifting in and out of consciousness. At one point during the recording, one of the perpetrators turns toward the camera and grins. When it was finished, they posed with the body, made gestures at the camera, cleaned themselves up, and walked away. Over the full 3-week spree, the group had collected roughly 40 minutes of recorded footage from various attacks, along with photographs taken at the crime scenes. The camera was present during nearly every attack because documenting the acts was considered an essential part of what they were doing. When the video of Yatsenko's murder was leaked onto the internet in 2008 under the title 3 Guys, 1 Hammer, it spread quickly across shock content websites and introduced the case to a worldwide audience. It remains one of the most disturbing pieces of authentic footage ever to circulate online, and is the main reason this case is still talked about nearly 20 years later. By mid-July 2007, at least 21 people were dead and at least 8 more had survived attacks. The victims' ages ranged from 14 to 85, and the entire spree had lasted less than 1 month. The arrest was unrelated to the murders. On July 23, 2007, Suprunyuk tried to sell a mobile phone that had been stolen from one of the victims and was detained by police during that attempt. Within hours, the whole case fell apart. The phones recovered from the group contained the recorded footage and crime scene photographs. A yellow-handled hammer was seized and forensically linked to wounds on multiple victims. All 3 gave confessions, although Suprunyuk later attempted to retract parts of his statement. And Vadim Lyakov, the teenager who had hidden at the riverbank while his friend was killed next to him, stepped forward and positively identified all 3 men, providing the investigation with one of its most vital pieces of eyewitness testimony. The trial continued through 2008 and ended on February 11, 2009. Suprunyuk was found guilty of 21 murders and received a life sentence plus an additional 15 years for the robbery charges. Sayenko was found guilty of 18 murders and got the same combined sentence. Hanzha, whose involvement was confined entirely to the robbery phase with no part in any killing, was convicted of robbery and given 9 years. Throughout the trial, the parents of Sayenko and Suprunyuk insisted that their sons were innocent, a position that the evidence made completely untenable. All appeals were rejected, and the Ukrainian Supreme Court upheld the convictions in November 2009. Neither Sayenko nor Suprunyuk displayed any regret at any time during the proceedings. The impact of the case went beyond the sentences themselves. The nationwide media coverage and the online spread of the footage directly inspired another group of young men from the same region, who went on to commit similar attacks. That group became known as the Academy Maniacs, and the link between their crimes and the Dnepropetrovsk case was so clear that investigators considered the footage a contributing factor in the copycat violence. Hanzha served his full 9-year term and was released around 2018 or 2019. He has since reportedly gotten married, had children, and lives a private life. As of the most recent confirmed reports, Sayenko and Suprunyuk remained in Ukrainian prisons serving life sentences. In 2024, claims surfaced via Russian state media, alleging that both men had been drafted into the Ukrainian military during the ongoing war with Russia and had later escaped with weapons. No independent source has verified any part of these claims, and they are widely considered disinformation. Sayenko and Suprunyuk were 19 years old when they committed 21 murders in under a month. They recorded the attacks because they wanted a record of what they had done and an audience for it. The footage still circulates. The notoriety they planned for is exactly what they received.